Paper or PDF?
Extra credit ran out or something. Anyway, I want to welcome all of you to Fullerton College's Global Warming Teach-In. Before our next speaker, I want to remind you about our 5:30 sunset vigil. Those of us that have been here all day this morning, 5:30 seemed like a long time ago, but it's just a couple hours. And we will be holding flashlights out in front of the College Center, celebrating and demonstrating our commitment to sustainable practices at our college and in our community and in the world, hopefully. And at 8:30, if you haven't heard this already, there is a free showing of the documentary 11th Hour, so come on out and join us for that compelling video. Narrated, hosted by Leo DiCaprio, and full of incredible people. I find it's a pretty zippy documentary and easy to watch, and certainly an important video as well. Our next speaker comes to us from the ranks of students here at Fullerton College, and Jonathan was an honors student in my oceanography class last semester. He's volunteered to come and talk to you about some of the efforts that he thinks that can be made on campus to start moving us towards more sustainable practices, both in terms of reducing carbon emissions and also reducing just waste streams and those kinds of things. So let's give a big round of applause to Jonathan Mayer.
All right, so I'm Jonathan Mayer. I'm like Professor Chamberlain said, I was in his honors class last semester. I'm actually a Cal State Fullerton student now. Give you a little bit of background on me. I'm old. I was way too old to still be in college. I was going on the better part of a decade in college, so obviously efficiency is not going to be something that I'm demonstrating in my own collegiate life, but it's something I want to talk about today. Is there any skeptics in here, any global warming skeptics? I'm going to raise my hand. Anybody else? Okay, great. So this is the wrong audience for that. But I was skeptical when Professor Chamberlain started talking about global warming. I'm still skeptical now, but I always try and develop plans that are win-wins in my own life. And I think with global warming, even if you're a skeptic, apparently nobody is, but even if you're a skeptic, global warming talks about two things, and those two things are both things that are win-wins no matter how you cut it. The distinctions I want to just keep in mind as I'm talking about paper or PDF is conservation, which is one big factor of global warming. What are we going to stop using to reduce greenhouse gases? And the other is efficiency. What do we currently use that we're going to use more efficiently? And those two things are win-wins, because no matter how you cut conservation and efficiency, well, possibly conservation, but no matter how you cut efficiency, it's going to reduce your cost. And that's really what I'm going to talk about today. I'm not going to talk so much about global warming. I'm just going to accept that it's happening, that the consequences are bad, but now let's talk about a specific tactic that we can employ here to reduce what we use and make what we do use more efficient. Just some basic facts, I'm sure you guys have all seen these today. Global energy use is up 62% since 1980. Now, that's a nice number, but you have to also consider that a lot of third world countries have become industrialized over the past 25 years, or 30 years. So you would expect to see some rise in global energy consumption, maybe not 62%, but you would expect to see some rise in energy consumption as they bring on industrial centers. They move from a post-agrarian industrial to an industrial, or maybe even a semi-post-industrial phase. But in the developed countries like the United States, Great Britain, and the developed countries in Europe, we went up 28% also. So we were well into a post-industrial phase in 1980, but yet we still see a 28% rise in our energy use. And carbon emissions from those energy increases are up 23%. So you can see in the developed countries, clearly, those two numbers are suggesting that even in post-industrial countries, the energy use is a factor. What are we using it for? We're using it for transportation. We're using it for industrial factories and things like that. Residential and commercial are the last two. But what I want us to look at is if we see commercial in use, for example, my computer or your clothes, that commercial in use has transportation and industrial built into it. Somebody had to make your shirt, somebody had to run the loom that it was on, somebody had to put it on a truck, that truck was driven here, was put in a box. So all those different types of things go into the end-use, the commercial end-use percentage. So as we, as end users of whatever product, decrease, the upstream consumption is also going to decrease. The delivery point reduction is manageable at the individual policy level. If I say I'm going to be more efficient in what I use, then I can decrease those industrial and commercial uses as well, because they're going to be using as much because I'm not buying it. That's important to remember. We think about government policy, for example, putting a cap on emissions or something like that as being important. It's equally, if not more important and more feasible for the end user to recognize what they're doing is contributing to upstream energy use. So let's talk about classroom paper. What is a classroom? We're in the classroom. What are we trying to do? We're trying to learn. Well, really what we're going to do is we're going to exchange information. The teacher has some information and I have some information. She's going to give me her information. I'm going to take it in, evaluate it. I'm going to somehow transmit it back to her to show her that I've absorbed it. She's going to evaluate it. And then our entire information package of what we did in the classroom is going to be stored somewhere, i.e. my grade. So the manner in which this transfer occurs is flexible. It doesn't have to be on paper. For example, I'm sure we've all given speeches, just like the one I'm giving now. Or perhaps you've given an oral report. Or some of you may have taken an online class. So you know that that information transfer is a flexible medium. It doesn't have to occur necessarily even in a classroom. But of course, we all know the standard practice is to deliver this information on paper. So let's consider some of the different paper resources that we use. Textbooks, huge. Textbooks are a giant, giant chunk of paper. So our tests, homework, research papers, handouts, and our class schedules are also big chunks of paper. All these are consumed by us for every single class we take. So if you think about, you're taking 4 classes, you're taking 5 classes, you're taking a full load, how many pages are in all the textbooks that you're using? Somebody had to cut down a tree, somebody had to put that tree on a truck, somebody had to drive that truck to the paper plant, and the paper got made. All these things are called a life cycle assessment, and we're going to be talking about that in just another second. So consider harvest and transport. We're going to chop down the tree. Manufacturing, we're going to turn it into paper. We're going to package it somehow. We're going to put it on a website and advertise it. We're going to put it in a store. It's going to have all those different retail presentation energy uses associated with it. Then I'm going to use it eventually in my classroom. I'm going to put my homework on it or whatever. And then I'm going to dispose of it. So all of these things require energy. And what the EPA has done is they've taken this life cycle assessment data and they put together some hard figures for what it actually costs in energy for something like a piece of paper or a milk jug or whatever product. This is all available online, but whatever product, what's the energy of each different stage of the process, from virgin resource all the way to complete disposal.